Happy New Year 2019 and welcome again to Reborn Detroit, Detroit's first on premium talk show. It's been a great start for us in 2019. Hope you also had a great start to your 2019. Detroit, as we know, has always stood for its dominance and prominence in hosting global cultures. And it's our pleasure today to host the first leader in 2019 who has been to different parts of the world, who has studied different cultures of the world, and who itself is a global dynamic leader. It's Marianne Reich, Executive Director, Global Rise Detroit. Thank you for joining us, Marianne.
Thanks so much, Monish. Happy New Year to you.
Thank you. Russia has always been a sensitive topic, as you know, Marianne, but still, how was your recent visit to Russia?
It was wonderful. A little bit cold in December. I was happy to be a part of a U.S. State Department program called Russian Business Leaders, where I had the opportunity to travel to different parts of Russia, Kaliningrad, Moscow, and Kazan, and share the Detroit story of our revitalization. I particularly focused on entrepreneurship, social impact, and enterprises, and innovation throughout the city and how it is changing our city. And Russians were very interested in that. They were very interested.
Hopefully they were friendly.
They were very friendly and interested in continuing that friendship and making sure that we knew how hopeful they are for both the United States and for Russia.
And thanks for mentioning innovation, because I've been an innovator myself and I can understand the importance of innovation in any kind of growth, irrespective of city, whether it's company, organization, or whether it's city. So I've seen that Detroit has always hosted international cultures, as I mentioned, and international cultures have been an important part of a city, and they create an offset for a city to grow, because that creates a different perspective, and perspective creates different ideas, and ideas create creativity. So we can go on and on, but my question to you is, what are your perspectives on international cultures on Detroit's revitalization?
I 100% agree with you that the diverse opinions from people of different cultures and backgrounds and talents and creativities are essential to to a city's revitalization, such as Detroit. And people are bringing expertise, talent, work ethic, and know-how and drive really to come together and really build a better community through working together. And so one example that comes to mind is Detroit's Southwest community, where we know it's very diverse there. We have Latino community.
We can see that when we go there.
We can see that when we go there. Arab Americans, African Americans, other groups coming together and really revitalizing that area. And so now we know that it's one of the best places to go to a restaurant or shop or spend time in the park. So I agree with you that diverse communities come together and really can help improve a city.
Hopefully you had a good walk in one of the parks in the southwest part of Detroit, as you mentioned.
Yeah, Clark Park.
Because parks are a place where you can rethink and self-reflect. So I hope that they have good parks there.
Yes.
And when did you go to the park?
That would be more in the fall than in the winter.
Okay. Is there any particular reason
They sometimes have community meetings in the park. They have community celebrations. I know that some holidays, such as Day of the Dead, which is a Mexican holiday, was celebrated there in the park. And so it's just a lovely place to go. And then it's fun to go to the restaurants and the shops in the area as well.
Maybe you should take some of the delegation to the park. They can see a greener side of Detroit.
That's right. That's right.
And we always know that delegation, diplomacy, and trade goes hand in hand with business. So do you see any effects of the international delegation and trade on Detroit's economy, Marianne?
Yes, I do. And to sort of extend your park metaphor, I'll go to the river. So we know the river is our border between Canada. And we know that that is the busiest trade crossing between Canada and the United States and the whole country. So definitely Detroit as a player in that international trade
Okay.
between Canada and the United States is really very vital. So we definitely get delegations interested in international trade and international partnerships and regional trade. And we also get delegations that are looking at entrepreneurship
Okay.
and business development and how we do it here in Detroit and how it is revitalizing the city. Still looking at the impact of our automotive industry, but also all those diverse industries from technologies,
Right.
as well as our retail sector, and how are those coming together to rebuild this city. And that's something that's very attractive to them.
Okay.
They definitely want to come back and invest or have partnerships or have sort of landing spots here in Detroit to do business in America from.
I've been to different US airports, so I can say that, of course, the airports are really great and they may have a great landing spot here in
Yes.
Detroit.
Exactly.
Right. And what do you think is about the Gordie Howe Bridge, which is in construction? Do you see that can give a push to the international trade?
I do think so. I think it's more opportunity, it's modernized facilities. So I think it's a great opportunity for even increased international trade going back and forth between our two great countries, Canada and the United States.
Okay.
And I think more possibilities for those kind of things, the better. Just like the international delegations, the more trade we have between
Right.
countries, the more beneficial. I think the more dialogue we have between people of different countries, the better as well.
Okay. And what has been your perspective on visiting Canada as a diplomat? And what qualities personally helped you in relieving those tension and having a friendly discussion, Marianne?
Oh, well, I think of myself as a citizen diplomat, but I love visiting Canada. I always am so excited that Detroit is an international city on an international border, and that, you know, in downtown we're just minutes away from getting to Canada.
Yes.
So I always find that very exciting to see the different names, to have our GPS change to kilometers from
Right.
miles. It's a good reminder how connected we are all around the world. So I love going to Canada and I love coming back home to Detroit.
I hope you love it. And one thing which I think you love more is you drive on the same side.
Yes.
That's you are always a left-hand drive.
That's right.
I don't know if you visited UK, but they
We
drive
have,
on the
yeah.
right.
I have not rented a car in UK though.
Okay. So have you been to UK before?
For sure, yeah. Luckily, I have some relatives in London, and
Okay.
I'm happy to take the bus or the tube, but not to drive.
Okay.
Have you had the opportunity to drive in the other side of the road?
Yes, of course. I've
Yes.
been from an Asian country, particularly India, and we always drive on the right-hand side of the road. That's why our right side of the brain is developed more than the left-hand side. We are more creative and also on the other side analytical. So that gives us an advantage of being analytical and creative and opening the doors to different industries. Thank you for asking, Marianne. And so I was curious to know what personally made you passionate in representing Detroit globally as a Detroit cultural ambassador?
It's a great question. Well, I've always been interested in international understanding, and I think Detroit is a unique community. It's
Okay.
really fascinating. I think it's fascinating to people all around the world to learn the Detroit story. We had a meteoric rise in Detroit due to industry. We had some challenges in our recent past due to globalization, but due to a lot of other factors as well. And I think people around the world are now rooting for our revitalization, which we see in front of our, you know, I know you and I both see how exciting
I'm
things are
trying
in
to see
Detroit.
it through the show.
And so I think people around the world take inspiration
Okay.
from seeing what's happening in Detroit. I really do think that people are rooting for Detroit. In a sense, we're the underdog, just like the T-shirt
Yes,
says,
right.
you know, Detroit versus everyone. And they also see that Detroit, like the T-shirt said, hustles harder.
Yes.
We're working really hard to make a new city and also keep all the best of our history as we decide what is Detroit going to become. So
Okay.
it's something that is really interesting, and I think there's lessons for a lot of communities around the world. For example, in Russia, in Kazan,
Okay.
which had a lot of industry during the Soviet times, now they're trying to figure out what to do with those old industrial spaces. So they're very interested to know about some of our social enterprises or some of our urban farms or some of the other ways we're repurposing space and buildings so they serve us better now that we don't need them for manufacturing.
Okay. And I've been to some parts of Michigan. Of course, we are based in Detroit. But do you see any places where tourists can go and experience the culture of Detroit, especially?
Oh, sure. There's so many places in Detroit. I love to take people even just on a ride along the People Mover or a ride on the Q line.
Because I know you have cultural delegations and which focus mainly on taking on the delegates to expose them to the Detroit culture.
Yes, and we have so many phenomenal cultural institutions,
Okay.
from the Detroit Institute of Arts, the Detroit History Museum, going to Belle Isle, going to the Motown Museum. There's just, it's countless numbers that I can say to experience Detroit, to go inside the Guardian Building or the Fisher
Right.
Building. And again, there to see the beauty of what Detroit was and what Detroit is and what Detroit is becoming.
Okay.
So definitely, I think there's so many places where people can experience Detroit, listen to some great music, eat some good food, and really appreciate the friendliness of
Okay.
people in Detroit.
Right.
Is something that moves people. And when then they go back to their home countries, they talk about how well they were treated in Detroit, how
Yes.
surprised they were about,
Except the cold.
except the cold, about the opportunities. Less cold than Russia.
Yes, less cold than Russia and any other countries in particular.
Yeah.
And is there any particular spot which the global tourists or global delegates have really appreciated, that this is it, this cultural place of Detroit can be only found in Detroit and we cannot find it anywhere else? Like a place in Detroit where you saw that they really appreciated it.
It's always surprising. It can be all sorts of different places depending on the delegations.
Yes.
Sometimes it's a baseball game
Okay.
at Comerica Park, which
Okay.
is like a quintessential
Right.
American experience, having baseball and, you know, having their picture taken underneath the lion's paw. Other times it's at the riverfront where they can see Canada just across the river and the big
Yes.
Canadian flag at the
Right.
at the casino over there. Oftentimes it's at the Renaissance Center at the GM headquarter building, where it's again a quintessential American skyscraper.
Right.
So it's hard to say, depending on the delegation's interests. It can be so many of those different places inside Detroit.
Hopefully you take them in the summer
Yes,
so that they can enjoy it more.
it's summer and year round.
Okay. And when was Global Ties Detroit established? What was its purpose? What was its driver? And did you see that in future already when you established that it was one of the key organizations
Sure.
who was going to be a part of the revitalization?
Well, so Global Ties Detroit was founded a while back. It was actually founded in 1972 as the International
Okay.
Visitors Council of Metropolitan Detroit.
I wasn't born
Yeah.
that time, so
And I was just a peanut. So it was a long time ago that it was founded as part of a network
Okay.
that was here to support the State Department programs. So they
Okay.
are State Department public diplomacy programs where they were bringing in delegations. So it was founded back then, and since then has really changed its focus to bring in lots of delegations and also connect globally minded Detroiters with each other.
Okay.
So we can continue to promote Detroit as a center of international commerce and culture,
okay.
bridging understanding between people of
Right.
different countries, but also connecting people like us who are globally
Yes,
minded
that's
citizens.
what made us that's what helped us in inviting you.
Yes, because you're a global citizen and you're a citizen diplomat just like I am. And
Yes, right.
between us, we can meet with these international delegations and really have a positive impact on the world through our person-to-person interaction with them.
And we know that recently we are going to have the auto show soon. That's the 2019 North American International Auto Show. And we have seen that any automobile company can make its presence in Detroit with its extensive partnerships with the local organizations to promote it or to brand it or rebrand it or reinvent it. So I've seen that you have made the strongest collaborations in terms of team building, innovation, and outreach for Global Ties Detroit. So which partnerships do you consider the best and how did you do it, Marianne?
We are so lucky here in Detroit to have so many phenomenal organizations. So when we have our international delegations come, we have organizations, actually literally hundreds of them throughout the city and the region, who are supporting our mission by meeting with these delegations and sharing their best practices, and being willing to share friendship and networking and lessons learned with them.
Okay.
And so some of them are ethnic chambers, some of whom you've had here on your
Right.
show.
Thank you.
And others are government organizations, universities, and private businesses who want to meet and make those partnerships.
Okay. I think we have discovered enough globally just sitting in Detroit. And thank you very much for sharing your opinion, Marianne, and spasibo. That's thank you in Russian too.
And I'll say pожалуйста, which is you're welcome in Russian, and thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you, Marianne. Let us make Detroit a global gateway for friendship, peace, and prosperity, and present it with a future ever brighter than ever. Thank you, and please stay tuned.